Welcome to another show of From the Top. And I'm absolutely delighted. I'm John Myers and I'm interviewing today Johann Koss. Probably best known to you as a great Olympic speed skater, 4 gold medals, but also probably even more as the founder of Right to Play, a wonderful charity that basically encourages children all around the world to enjoy life through sport. Johann, nice to meet you.
Nice to see you again.
We'll start as usual with where you came from, which was Norway.
Norway is a very safe country. It has its social structure where it's created more in the equal side. My parents are both medical doctors. They had a very open house with treatment of people. Obviously they had the jobs at the hospital, but it seemed like their calling didn't end at their job, because we constantly had people coming to the house, which kind of inspired me of providing service and helping people as needed. They were constantly trying to help others, and as a child you don't think much around that. You think about what you want to do and where you want to play.
Yeah, and you don't notice what's for you normal.
No, exactly. And
yeah.
I was living. It's extremely safe. We walked to school when I grew up. If it was in the winter, we even cross-country skied to get there. And the things I remember the most is all the times I was playing on the school ground, or when I was doing my sports, and how I got connected to my speed skating, which was the sport I loved the most. I tried a lot of them, but that one was the one who kept me smiling the most. And I remember going there. Actually, I was very young. I was only 7 when I wanted to be a speed skater, or I wished for that for Christmas, and I got it from my parents.
And then the skates.
The skates, yeah. So. And it's unusual because normally you want hockey skates or something, but I wanted the long one and the skinny one, the speed skates. And I went down on the track, which was only a couple of kilometers away from my house. So I walked over there by myself as a 7-year-old, and I remember coming to the track, and I've never been welcomed so much wonderful people and by all volunteers. And there was a 19-year-old kid who was responsible for the skating school to learn how to skate.
Right.
And he picked me up out of the snow and kind of helped me dazzle around on the ice, which was pretty hopeless because I wasn't very talented. But he kept asking, kept pushing me and encouraging me, and I kept going. What I didn't know at that stage, that 19-year-old was my coach. He was my coach my entire career.
Really?
I finished my Olympics in '94. With the gold medals around my neck. So he followed me and I followed him, and he's probably the one who gave me the lessons and values of sport which I've taken throughout my life. He installed a very hard-working mentality and a combination of working hard on the ice in connection to school. Like we weren't given every free time. Remember between races that we had to do our math and English and all the thoughts.
So that still took priority.
Definitely, yeah. He was a big focus on you needed to be successful. You needed to be successful in both arenas, both on the school side and the sports side.
The interesting thing occurs to me. One of the great things about Right to Play, which we'll get onto in a minute, is the working as a team and that sort of thing. Hockey, great team sport. Speed skating, possibly not.
But it's not an individual. I mean, no sport is actually truly an individual sport. There is nothing you can do by yourself. Everything is with support of others. You learn tremendous from other people. You have to be within the team. Like I was within the Norwegian speed skating team after I was, selected to be on the national team. Obviously, I learned a lot from the other skaters who was also extremely talented and wanted to achieve gold medals. I learned from my coaches, my psychotherapist or the psychologist, the physiotherapist, the team leaders, all of the individuals around you. You are constantly the team. My family obviously constantly supporting me. If they weren't part of this as a team, it would never be successful. So even an individual sport, it works as a team I will say, even at the time when you're competing, and that's kind of even though I don't send the pass to anybody,
right.
and I skate by myself, and
yeah.
it's, you know, you're totally focusing on your own performance. I'll give you an example, because on the first race in my home country in the Olympics in '94, I came into that with a lot of doubts, and if my abilities were going to be well, and I had some poor races prior to the games, which created, you know, uncertainties. And sometimes that's not bad, because if you're a little uncertain, you focus it even more and you test yourself further. Though when I got into the race, I'd skated about 1,000 meters out of the 5,000, and I got a bad lap time, and the doubts clearly came through my head again, and I saw the headlines of my own failure in the middle of the race. So I could, you know, I've only skated 2.5 out of 12 laps, and that's when the coach, you know, screamed to me and said, "I did a good exit of the turn," and I was like, "Yeah, that was good. He's right. I want to do it even better." And you can imagine the change in my mental attitude, that I, instead of worrying about what was going wrong, I started focusing on what I was doing really well. And the next exit I did really well, and what I didn't do good was the balancing on the straights, and I didn't get a good fall, which we said in the skate, like this, you're falling from one side to the other. But that fell immediately, and after I'd even improved my exit with a positive, and then my lap time went straight down, and I broke the world record. So trust me, if that wasn't a team effort, I wouldn't be sitting here now. I wouldn't have won the gold medal. I wouldn't have broke the world record. So
would have got the other two.
Well, but this was the first one. And I always say that. I mean, the first one gave me a lot of confidence and build up to the next two races. Obviously, I was in good enough shape to keep going at it. But if the first one failed, I probably wouldn't have won the second two either. So it would have been a very different Olympics. So with one comment,
amazing.
But in the middle of the race, so that's the team. So you say, actually, there's so much to be able to succeed anywhere, and you can never do it alone. And there's a lot of people who believe they do it alone, but it's not true. If you can just put a speed skater on an island and see how fast he will skate after a couple of years he's been there by himself, won't be that fast, trust me.
We're going to take a break now, and we'll come back and perhaps look at I think the greatest success of Johann's career, which is after winning all those golds. See you in a minute. Welcome back, my guest, Johann Koss. And I'm now going to start the second phase, I think, of his glittering career. Johann, so we've now got to the stage, you've won the gold medals in Lillehammer. What turned you into eventually ending up with Right to Play? How did that start?
Well, I had the fortune, actually even prior to the Olympics, to go to Eritrea in Africa, and I met young boys and girls who suffered 30 years of civil war.
Was that with a charity that you went?
It's called Olympic Aid. This was initiated by the Olympic Organizing Committee in Hamar, Lillehammer. And they asked me to be an ambassador, and I went there in the middle of my training, which is, I was going in as kind of a little spoiled athlete, but realizing life is very different from kids who doesn't have the chances to participate and play. And one boy, a group I met, the boys, one guy was very popular. I asked, why are you so popular? And he looked at me, laughed, and said, can't you see I have long sleeves? I said, long sleeves, what do you mean? Well, and he took off his shirt, rolled it together, and the sleeves went in a knot, and that's how they had a ball, and that's how he could play, soccer in the streets. And I asked if they ever had a soccer ball or a coach or anything. Never had anything like that. And
so without him, they had no ball.
They had no balls. They have nothing. And you kind of realize, for me, the incredible luck I've been born in Norway and been given everything I needed to be where I was, and that I shouldn't waste my talent. I should focus. Sometimes even a top athlete worries about, am I doing the right thing? And this is, you complaining and worrying and, things like this, and want to quit. And, I have to say that those kids motivated me to do my best over the next 6 months leading into the Olympics, and because I've been given so much. And of course, they've also motivated me to see that sport and play is a key part of a child's development. Doesn't matter where they live. And I was shocked the years after the Olympics, when I kind of became an advocate for that nobody was doing it in the worst places in the world. And the children organization I was working with, like even strong one like UNICEF and Save the Children and others, Red Cross, they thought it was more of a luxury and it wasn't really a priority at the time.
To have them playing games or whatever.
Yeah, and using sport as a tool for development of children.
You told me earlier on the nice story of your first venture, which was to go back to Eritrea, wasn't it?
Yeah, actually just after the Olympics, we had a very successful Olympic aid campaign during the Olympics. We raised about $18 million, and we built schools and hospitals and did the traditional development work. Then, but I did remember those boys I met, and I said we're going to bring them the soccer balls back, and promised that. And so I challenged the Norwegian kids: do you have any soccer balls or any equipment lying around which you don't use? And of course, every child in the rich world has something. So we got 13 tons of sport equipment in a couple of weeks. It's all spread around Norway, of course. It was a bit of a logistical nightmare. Got it all together, and as I'm leaving for Eritrea, the largest paper in Oslo writing, Koss is bringing soccer ball to starving kids. What an idiot. So what the journalists have seen is like, the president had called for food because it was a drought and they would be shorted in the fall, and this was in the spring. And he kind of connected, why are you doing this? That's not the right thing to do. I got very nervous. Never been called an idiot before on the front page, and certainly didn't know necessarily what I was doing. I've been skating around the track, but I couldn't stop, so I took with me the equipment, and flew down. I brought the journalists with me, together with some kids who represented the older children who's given their equipment, and we met with the president. And he had called for food, and I said, I don't bring any food, I bring balls. And he looks at me and said, this is the most important gift we ever received. It's like now we feel like human beings, something more than just being kept alive. And he says, to keep our dreams and hopes alive, this is so key. So now my kids, he says, the first time he's going to be able to play in school. His own kids, he was 8 and 10 at the time.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it just told me the incredible importance of sport, the power sport can have to raise a country out of violence and war to democracy, and how important it is for us to build civil society. And I've seen it every day since. Every single day for the last 18 years I've been working with this.
Tell me a bit about that, because I'm sure there are a lot of cynics, particularly those that aren't sporty, would say, so you give these children a football.
Yeah.
So you start kicking a ball, next thing they're going to have a fight over the football. How does it actually work?
Well, I mean, obviously sport is a fabulous tool because it has rules and regulations, and it's very well known, and it's been set in a structure so you can have fun, and it's going to create fairness. If you do that, I've worked with child soldiers who come out, will have no structure or fairness, and have certainly no adult role models. And then you give them a ball and you say there's no rules, and you say just do whatever you do, and then they do fight. They take the ball and one guy gets the strongest, runs away with it and sells it on the market, and he gets 50 quid in his pocket, and then he's happy. But there's like 19 more kids on the field. And they're looking at me and saying, well, what now? I said, well, I only want more ball. So what do you guys want to do? And then they define the rules, and they know some rules from the games, and they set it up. They become the referees. They kind of controlling their own life, and they say, and this is then we start talking about why is rules important in life? Well, it's because if we don't have rules, it's not going to be fair. And we understand why we need rules so we can have fun. And then we talk about why we have rules in society and why we have to not, use violence to solve conflicts, and how they should be motivated to be good people in their society, and how they can rebuild even with the background they have with years of being a rebel or a child soldier.
So is there a part of the program is them being educated that way, not just running around on a pitch?
Every game we have, every activity we implement has a lesson to it. It's all connected to lessons, life lessons. It's about life skills. It's about empowering them through educational skills. It could be everything from numeracy to literacy skills. Even you can learn how to read and write actually through games. Or it's through improving in their health. I mean, in the area of protection from diseases, it could be around malaria and HIV/AIDS. Or if it's into building society, it's about how the structures are working, why we have rules, like how you can be a leader, how you should be kind of commencing meetings and having discussions, and everybody should be speaking, etc., etc., and have a respect for women and how to stop violence against women. And all of those things are developed into the games we are participating. It doesn't matter what type it is, if it's a drill on the soccer field, if it's basketball, netball, or if it's just games itself. Like we have thousands of those games. And that's our methodology and curriculum we have developed over the years to make sure that we are reaching the outcomes we want. The role of a coach is critical. And that's the same as it was in my life.
Yes.
As I said earlier, like, you know, if I wouldn't have that coach who guided me through life, I wouldn't be sitting here. And
so one of the things that you, obviously your strength is having coaches wherever you are.
Yes.
Local coaches.
Yeah, we have, you know, tens of thousands of coaches now.
Right.
And we have 850,000 kids in our program who knows where to go every single week. And by the end of this year, we will train another couple of thousand, so we will have 1 million children in our program by the end of this week. So 1 million children who before were not able to go anywhere safe have now a safe playground, have a place to go and a coach they trust who can guide them in their life choices.
Yeah. Johann, we'll come back and finish off this fascinating interview, but we'll take a break now and see you in a minute. Welcome back. I'm talking to Johann Koss, and now the bit I'm interested in is that there are lots and lots of excellent charities. How is it that you find the right people who are going to actually stay? I'm sure everyone sort of thinks charity for about a year and then goes and does something else. What is it you're looking for that will get someone to do it properly?
Let's start on the kind of the basis, because I think if everybody does a little bit, that will be a main difference. Because we don't need to do a whole, I mean, you don't need to totally change your life to change the world. That's, you know, if everybody could do a little bit and made responsible for give back, I think the world would be so much better, because together that would be an amazing amount of things. We are looking for people who are passionate, who believes that they can make a difference, and who understands that what we are doing in our part of the world have an impact everywhere in the world, and that we actually can make a difference that way, even if it's, you know, through financial support and resources, or if it's through their knowledge or to training and other elements of this. So there's a lot of ways to be able to be helpful.
There's that famous saying, which I think is actually a very sensible one. It's much better to give the country some seeds so they can grow the bread rather than to just give them a loaf of bread.
Yeah.
In other words, something where you're going to get a result that will then last.
No, it's, you know, creating sustainable programs is key, and looking at building the local capacity to make sure that they can run it. That's a key element and the guiding principle of our organization. I mean, we only work with local people, we have only local staff, we have only local volunteers, and strengthening the local organizations. And we see that as a big one. Though there is an inspiration to get a visit from somebody living in a different country who knows other things. I mean, we have knowledge, each of us, we can share. Last week, just recently, we had a youth summit in Rwanda where 45 Canadian youth went and met 45 youth from West Africa country in Kigali, and they all shared their own experiences, and they were incredible to listen to what they've learned and what they could do, and how the collective knowledge kind of created clear statements for how we can improve lives of children everywhere in the world, because we see that in Canada it's also there is issues around activation and participation in sport and play program.
In your life, apart from your father, your coach, and I remember actually once telling me your grandmother, who inspires you? Who's inspired you?
Well, beyond my family and my closest, which is clearly the one who's been supporting me the most, it's obviously, I grew up in the 90s and formed my view on the world and watched Nelson Mandela's transition from prison to being the leader he was and is in South Africa, and how he managed to change the world's attitude, and how he, they conquered apartheid, but then also saved the peace in the countries between the black and whites. And the way, the choices he made and the symbol he is was tremendous, and he was an incredible inspiration and source of motivation to me.
And you look back on your life, and you've got probably less than halfway through it, if you're lucky. What do you think, anything you'd have done that you'd have done differently, any decisions you made or advice you were given that you didn't follow?
I, of course, could certain things, you know, I would have done differently if I knew them, but do I regret that I'm doing it? Not necessarily. And I don't beat myself up because I didn't know what to do at the time, and I made a wrong choice. Though, you know, I mean, I think, you know, my advice, and particularly to people who wants to do things, if it's in business or in social service, don't be afraid, and don't have a lot of reasons not to do it. You're gonna make mistakes. Just learn from them and get going. Like, you know, it's always like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and that's, you know, and that's gonna happen to anybody. And everybody who's been leading anything will tell the same. They will say the same stories. It's always happens to them. You don't have a business plan ready because you don't know how the business is gonna run. And
right.
The way I started the organization and today, it's a very different scenario. It's a totally different way we're doing it, because I learned a lot on the way when I get to where we are today, which ways I did things before which was totally wrong.
And that's where it's nice having a team, of course, because you make a mistake, you've got the team to support you and help you. That's why being by yourself doesn't work. That's
right. I mean, again, back to the team, you know, I've been tremendously lucky again to have wonderful people associated and, you know, either hired or by volunteers in the organization who's guided and helped coming in the right directions and encouraged when it's been hard times, and shown the incredible leadership to take us to the next levels.
Where do you go from here? Do you see, because it'd be interesting, I could have asked you, when you started Right to Play, did you see it as it is today then?
I didn't at all, actually. Now, you know, it's interesting, I've always been very ambitious, as you can imagine, and I have a big drive, but I wasn't expecting it to be as big as we are today. I do have even higher ambition over the next 5 years for the organization to double again and have an even further impact on policies and governments, so it gets more mainstreamed what we are doing. So it's not only for the selective few in our programs, but every child should have the right to play.
Can you point to things where what you've done in the world, Palestine perhaps, anywhere, where you can say, you see, it's worked, that's changed, that's not going to happen again?
Yeah, I mean, tons of examples. I mean, I go to Pakistan, like we're working with girls in Pakistan, where there's tremendous restrictions around girls' participation in play and sport program, and we have managed to break the mold there for about 80,000 of them, where now participating and becoming leaders, and I see them as the future generation is going to change the view on women in Pakistan. I mean, clearly, over the next 10 years, you will see that happens as they grow up and feeling confident about their own abilities and breaking the mold, and it comes truly from their participation in our program. You will see different things in the Middle East, where violence has been reduced, suicide bombers and almost disappearing because they're participating in the soccer field on the program. If you look in Africa, it's protection of girls in relation to HIV/AIDS. Communities are describing before there was, you know, plenty of what they call sugar dads, men who went and paid young girls for sex, or favors. They're not there anymore because the girls know how to say no. They know how to protect themselves and how dangerous it is to, and how easy it is to be infected, and what their rights are to be a free woman and to be educated. I see in Benin where, you know, before 50% of the kids were out of school in 6 years' time. Now we have 96% to participate in the schools over 6 years, who fully graduate after 6 years of primary schools, which before it was only half of them. I mean, these are truly examples of why we are in these programs and what's the Right to Play's effect has on these communities.
Johann, I hope you have many more years and just as steep a rise in success with Right to Play, and thank you very much indeed for being in our program.
Well, thanks, John.
Thanks a lot. So that wraps up that, and we are very lucky to have had Johann. This is another edition of From the Top. I'm John Myers. See you next time.